Hey everybody, Groovy here, coming at you from the Grindhouse. And before I start the review for today's video, I just wanted to record a quick special message and tell anybody out there, if you watch this and there's somebody in your life that maybe you haven't reached out to or someone you haven't talked to in a little bit of a while, the holidays are coming up, man. Go talk to that person, let them know that you're thinking about them, let them know that you care if you haven't seen them in a little while. We don't know how much time we have, and I feel like going into the holiday season, that's probably the best message I could say to anybody. Yeah, so if even like 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people see this video, and they get to hear me say that, then I know I've done my part for the holiday season. I hope you guys like the review, and I hope you guys enjoy your holidays. From me at the Grindhouse. Take care, everybody. Let's get rolling. Hey everybody, Groovy here, coming at you from the Grindhouse, and today, it seems like time's just flying right by, because it seems like it was just yesterday that we were doing trailer reactions for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And it feels like yesterday, but it was really a couple months ago, and like a year ago? But I feel like today is the day we've finally seen Ghostbusters Afterlife and we have to get to the review. But first, we've got to get into uniform, right? Na 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 na. 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 Na 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 na. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling way more comfortable. Just that feeling you get when you know that you were born to wear this stuff. You know what I mean? I think you do. But let's get moving on to the bulk of the Ghostbusters Afterlife review. Finally! I feel like I've been waiting for this movie for like 30 years. I've definitely been waiting for it since 2016. But Ghostbusters Afterlife, directed by Jason Reitman, son of the director of the original 2 films, Ivan Reitman, and written by Gil Kenan, who was one of the writers, and I think he was possibly the director on Monster House, CGI animated feature from the mid-2000s. Love that movie. Go check that out with your kids if you're a fan of kind of scary, kind of monster CGI movies and shit like that from the middle 2000s era. But let's not go on a tangent about Robert Zemeckis' animated film resume, right? That's like something we can do in a different video. Focus, Groovy, focus. Now, I've already tried making this video like 3 times now, and sometimes I felt like I was being too positive about this film, and sometimes I feel like I was being too negative about this film. And I also keep finding myself asking the question, is it okay to judge the 2016 reboot as harshly as we do and not apply that same kind of critical eye to this new Ghostbusters movie? I don't know. Now, first things first, I was totally right about that haircut comment, because as soon as we see Trevor played by Finn Wolfhard, he is totally getting a haircut from Callie, who is his mother, played by Carrie Coons. I nailed that shit. I was just being a smartass, but no, that was eerily accurate. But other things that we knew about this movie from seeing the previews is this is a story about Egon's granddaughter, right? And they were smart when they went that route with that character, because Egon's granddaughter Phoebe, played by McKenna Grace, becomes a stand-in for his character because obviously Harold Ramis has passed. He can't be here to kind of fill out that role. And also it gives them an opportunity to tell this family story. But the family dynamic in this film is one of those things that I don't feel like it 100% lands with every character. But they were smart. When they made Phoebe a tiny version of Egon, they narrowly avoided making one of the mistakes that they kind of did with the 2016 film, and that being that when I watch the 2016 film, all of the characters are trying to riff off of each other. They're all trying to be Venkman, right? Like it's an improv sketch on Saturday Night Live, and it's very, very obvious. That film didn't build characters that well. The comedy was hit or miss, as all comedy really is in a way, so we'll kind of give it that. But still, this movie does it much better because instead of having everyone try to be Venkman, which is a hard comedy style to mimic, especially amongst 4 people, they kind of try to mimic Egon, which is a much easier character to try to mine some dry comedy out, especially with a good actress, and McKenna Grace carries this whole movie on her back at points. Her back and forth and her chemistry with the other characters is fantastic, especially with her friend in the Newtown podcast and Paul Rudd's character, her teacher, as well. And it's just fantastic to see on screen. I do really enjoy her character. I really connected with this character. She did a fantastic job. Finn Wolfhard, you could have cut his character out of this movie 100%. It would have been fine. They would have just needed to find somebody else to drive the car. He wasn't funny. He didn't have good chemistry with his little girlfriend character. I feel like every time his character came onto the screen, the movie just kind of stopped. And sometimes I even felt like I was watching almost a different movie when he was there. I feel like it was because there was less of the Ghostbusters nostalgia, which was sprinkled heavily throughout this film, that they could use in the Finn Wolfhard scenes, right? Like the only nostalgia they can mine out of him is him working on the Ecto-1 in the garage. But the teenage boy character who's trying to be cool in this new town doesn't quite come off as endearing as the younger sister character. The mother character, played by Carrie Coons, Callie, she does okay in this film as well. She does good with the kids, but there are parts of her character which I find a little bit irritating because I'm already invested into characters like Egon, and she has a low opinion of Egon, and Egon's not on screen to really talk for himself. We don't know what that story is. There's too much negative space with that element of the family backstory. Maybe it's just because I like Egon. So like I'm a little bit biased against her, but I don't know, man. There's some parts where I was like, I feel like she could have been written a little bit better, or we probably could have shifted away from some of the elements that didn't work, like crap with Trevor, and then given a little bit more development into her finding out about her father and coming to terms and acceptance with her father. That would have been a better part of a journey for her character, just like it was with Phoebe. But we don't get that from her. She just kind of becomes a little bit of a stick in the mud. And yeah, so that covers the main family characters. There's also Podcast. Podcast kind of becomes like a stand-in for the Ray character because he has this amount of enthusiasm, which is just fantastic. It's great to watch this kid. I thought that he was going to get annoying, but he just grew on me more and more because he was just a real kind of kid. He's going around, he's making his little Mysteries of the Unknown podcast. It was great. And there was a good little bit of a payoff there at the very end. I thought it was fantastic. That really worked for me. And it was great that they didn't have a whole gaggle of kids because that would have made it a little bit too much more like a Goonies. And it kind of let you kind of just sit there with the characters that they gave you and just kind of let it breathe. Phoebe and Podcast have a great back and forth. They're a great little set of characters. I had fun watching them on screen, even though they were so young. And here I am, a 36-year-old man wearing a Ghostbusters cartoon character costume. There's also Paul Rudd's character, Mr. Gruberson, and he was okay. He didn't have as much to do in the movie as I thought he was, but that's fine because what we got from Paul Rudd was good Paul Rudd. And yeah, he helps kind of bring Callie out of her shell a little bit to help kind of give us a little bit of insight into her character. But there are times where I feel like she's just so mean-spirited about it, and we don't know anything about it, and she's not talking about it. I'm still going to side with Paul Rudd and Egon on that one, but damn. But aside from the cast, another one of the major positives that this movie had going for it, and you're going to get that right away, is that this movie really stretches out the original score by Elmer Bernstein. It is just fantastic. You get those notes and they're used so well. It's just fantastic. I don't even know what the actual composer's name of the new score is, and I feel bad about that, but there was so much of that original score used so well. I was blown away by it, and it really helps pack in that nostalgia feeling, you know? The other things that really stood out in this film for me were some of the visuals. There were some very strong kind of callbacks to some of those industrial lights and magic, Boss Films kind of effects that we got in the original movies. I liked the fact that they went with like a kind of cleaned up version of some of the effects that we would have seen. And I liked that they kind of mimicked some of the effects from the original as well. I thought it was really well done. But that does bring me to this divisive idea in the back of my head, which keeps popping up every time I go to record this review, and that's whether or not it's okay for this movie to lean on that nostalgia that hard. And when they lean on it that hard, does it become a crutch for lazy storytelling. Because as I said, there are parts of that family dynamic that could have been cut out, could have been streamlined a little bit. It could have been a bit more solid, especially when the nostalgia factor starts to kick in. Like, there are some points in this film where they're cramming so much nostalgia on screen, I feel like they didn't even realize that it doesn't make any sense. And it was just so painfully obvious that to me, in the audience, I literally rolled my eyes at the screen. It was that bad. There are also some things that don't make sense to me either. Like, there were some cameos here and there that were kind of painfully obvious to me. Like, it felt to me like maybe there were plot elements of this film that got entirely edited out just to help with the runtime. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing about that kind of stuff in the future. Like, I'm just gonna say it. Why was J.K. Simmons in this movie? That seems like something they could have gotten a body double to do, right? Like, literally any person. But I get it, J.K. Simmons, you know, they ask you want to be in a Ghostbusters movie. You say, yes! But a lot of that nostalgia just keeps beating you over the head, and it starts to get numbing after a little bit of a point, especially when it's not all really well earned. Like Paul Rudd getting attacked in the Walmart. I love the cute little mini marshmallow guys, right? I thought they were fucking adorable and hilarious. But that reeked like marketing to kids, right? And that's something else that was a little jarring to me. This is definitely a film for a much younger audience than the original Ghostbusters was intended for. Ghostbusters was a film for adults. This is a movie that's made for kids. Ghostbusters wasn't made to sell toys. It eventually became something like that, but that really wasn't the whole point in the first place. This movie is a little bit more dubious in its intentions, right? Because we know they're gonna move some plastic on this bad boy, right? But all in all, not too bad. I did really love this movie, don't get me wrong. And another point that I'm going to make, and this is one we're going to put on the negative side, is watching this movie made me realize how much I wanted to see a true Ghostbusters sequel and how much I don't want to see a true Ghostbusters sequel. I think moving forward, I don't want to see that, because seeing these men in their 60s, 70s getting pushed around by CGI ghosts and stuff like that, you get a little bit of a taste of that in the final confrontation in this film. And I have to say, Bill Murray was right. You don't really want to see a bunch of 70-year-old men in proton packs getting tossed around. It's not as fun as you would think. There's this big negative space in the story, which to me as a Ghostbusters fan feels like it doesn't quite make sense, right? Especially when they give you a little bit of the backstory of what happened between Ray and Egon. And I have to tell you, I nearly shit my pants when I heard Ray Stantz say Egon Spengler can go rot in hell. Like, there's a story there which sounds kind of interesting, I'm not going to lie, but we're never going to get to see that. But luckily, you know, Ray kind of turned things around and we got to see more of the Ray that we all know what we wanted to see. I didn't want to see a bitter, old Last Jedi version of Ray Stantz. That would have just been too much, right? Maybe a real asshole-ish version of Venkman, right? And while I'm talking about them as well, Ernie Hudson, looking fantastic, man. That guy looks like he hasn't aged more than like a decade since the last movie. And they let him keep his mustache this time, unlike in Ghostbusters 2. He looked fantastic, man. God bless Ernie Hudson. I loved seeing him in this. I hope we get to see him in some more Ghostbusters stuff soon. He was actually my favorite cameo in the last Ghostbusters movie, the 2016 one as well. So there's that. But all in all, don't take me criticizing this film as me saying that I didn't love this film. Like I said, I cried when I watched this movie, man. It really, really hit. But there are elements to this film when I say if we take the Ghostbusters brand away and we just leave all of the story character beats from the family dynamic stuff, none of the Egon stuff, we just call him some other scientist, does this movie really work? And I don't know if it really does work without that Ghostbusters nostalgia help padding the runtime. The other side of the equation is if we didn't have the Ghostbusters element, would they have actually fleshed out the family dynamic story as well? We'll never really know. Instead, we get this kind of mixture, which sometimes feels like two different stories, or a story that doesn't know what it wants to be, like a spec script, and then they put Ghostbusters elements into it. I don't know if that's because Harold Ramis wasn't there to speak for Egon's character and we didn't get a fully fleshed out story, or if they were just lazy and they just didn't care from the get-go. I have to think it's more of the first one of those two, right? Hopefully. But then again, this is Sony we're talking about, so they're a bunch of fucking morons. But all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed. If I had to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, when I think about the nostalgia element of this movie and I give into it, it's definitely a solid 8 or maybe even a 9. When I just want to love Ghostbusters, I put it up here. But when I think about how harshly we judge 2016 Answer the Call, and I have to look at it to say, without the Ghostbusters elements, is this something that I would watch? And I would say yeah, because I watch shit like this all the time. But without it, I don't know if the movie is that strong. Without the nostalgia elements and the Ghostbusters brand, I feel like this movie's score would slide from that 8 or 9 down to like a 6. Maybe even a 5. So yeah, I did love this movie, but there were some flaws. I don't know. It left me wanting more though. It left me feeling good about the movie that I watched. And they were definitely a lot smarter with how they handled everything than they were the last time around. It's a good sign for the direction of the franchise moving forward. I hope we get to see more sooner rather than later. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Try to enjoy your holidays as well, because we're re-recording this for like the 3rd time on Thanksgiving Day. But yeah, stay safe, stay scared, but no matter what you do, like and subscribe, bitches! And also stay groovy. We outie. Bye-bye. Well, there's something strange in your neighborhood. Oh, who you gonna call? Groovy's Grindhouse. Oh, yeah.